Do you know that feeling? It's December. The snowflakes are swirling, and yet you're already dreading spring. Or, more accurately, dreading it. The shovel, the back pain, the heavy, muddy clumps of soil. But what if I told you that you could forget about spring tilling forever? That the real magic happens right now, in December. In this video, I'm going to reveal 20 steps that will turn your winter garden into a self-sufficient system, ready for spring planting without ever touching a shovel. Think it's impossible? Then stick around and prepare to be amazed. Because the secret of the successful lazy gardener isn't laziness at all. It's taking the right action at the right time. Let's pause for a second and ask, why do we even dig in the first place? For generations, we've been taught that tilling is a sacred duty for every gardener. We assumed it loosened the soil, controlled weeds, and managed pests. But modern agronomy views this differently. Imagine your soil as a multi-story building where different beneficial microorganisms live on every floor. Deep digging, or tilling, is essentially an earthquake. It destroys that structure, mixes the inhabitants, and shatters that fragile balance. The result? We end up with dead, unstructured dirt that dries out quickly and demands more and more fertilizer just to function. The entire concept of no-dig gardening is based on mimicking nature. Nobody tills the earth in the forest, yet the soil remains loose and incredibly fertile. Our goal is simple: to recreate that natural mechanism in our own garden beds. The first and most obvious step is a massive cleanup. But hey, let's keep it sensible. No need for overkill. Any plant residue showing signs of disease, think late blight on tomato vines or leaves covered in powdery mildew, needs to be mercilessly pulled out of the beds and incinerated. These leftovers are a ticking time bomb, a guaranteed breeding ground for next year's infections. Now, healthy material, such as carrot tops, beet greens, or leftover pea stalks, you can absolutely leave right where they are. Chop them up using your shovel or a garden hoe and leave the debris right on the surface. Throughout the winter, they'll start to break down, enriching the soil with organic matter and serving as a delicious meal for your earthworms. Picture this. Instead of hauling valuable fertilizer off your property, you are returning it directly to the soil, initiating a powerful, natural cycle. If we decide to ditch the shovel, does that mean we shouldn't touch the soil at all? Not exactly. Instead of deep digging, we opt for shallow loosening. Our goal isn't to turn over the soil layers, we just want to improve aeration and make the soil more breathable. A standard garden fork, a broad fork, or a specialised tool like a Fokin flat cutter is perfect for this task. Simply insert the fork about 15 to 20 centimetres deep and gently wiggle it back and forth. Work your way across the entire bed this way. This technique effectively breaks up any surface crust, significantly improves airflow to the plant roots, and allows moisture to soak in much more effectively. Visually, it feels less like a major surgical operation, the way deep digging feels, and more like you're simply giving the soil a light massage. December is the perfect time to run a quick diagnostic on your soil. You don't need complicated lab analysis. The simplest pH test can be done using regular household vinegar. Just grab a handful of soil from your garden bed and pour some 9% white vinegar on it. If the soil fizzes violently and starts bubbling, congratulations, you have alkaline soil. If the reaction is slight, your soil is neutral. But if absolutely nothing happens, the soil is likely acidic, which can be a real problem for most garden vegetables. Knowing your pH level is like getting the correct diagnosis. Without that knowledge, any further treatment, meaning adding fertilizer or soil amendments, could be useless or even harmful. If your soil test shows high acidity, now is the perfect time to start the liming process. Winter is actually the ideal window for this task. Soil amendments used to reduce acidity, such as dolomitic lime, hydrated lime, or even wood ash, are naturally slow-acting. If applied in December, they will have plenty of time to fully interact with the soil over the winter, ensuring the pH is balanced and ready by the time spring planting rolls around. Simply spread the chosen amendment evenly across the surface of your garden beds. Application rates will depend entirely on your specific pH level, but the average recommended dose is roughly 200 to 300 grams of dolomitic lime per square metre. Imagine you are gently dusting the soil, setting up the perfect foundation for your future plants. They will certainly thank you for your effort with a lush, abundant harvest. Now, let's discuss feeding the soil. Winter is the perfect time to lay out a rich smorgasbord for the soil residents and the plants you'll grow later. And the star dish here is organic matter. Well-rotted compost or rich humus is liquid gold for any gardener. Spread it over the surface of your garden beds in a layer about 3 to 5 centimetres deep. Important note, do not dig this material in. Just leave it sitting right on the surface. Over the winter, the snow, rain and spring meltwater will naturally dissolve and carry all those essential nutrients deep into the soil, right where the future roots will need them. Plus, earthworms and microorganisms will happily process the organic matter themselves, which dramatically improves your soil structure. It's essentially like setting loose an invisible army of tiny helpers to work for you all winter long. Most people see compost as simple fertilizer, but its function is actually far broader. When you add compost, you aren't just feeding your plants, you're healing the soil itself. The organic matter acts like a glue, binding tiny soil particles into clumps, creating that beloved, loose and airy structure. This kind of soil structure acts like a sponge, soaking up and holding moisture, a feature that is critical during dry spells. On top of that, compost is home to millions of beneficial microorganisms that actively protect your plants from diseases. So, the next time you spread compost across your garden beds, imagine that you are laying down a fertile, healthy foundation for the entire season ahead. Organics are great, but sometimes you just need to supplement with mineral fertilizers. Autumn and early winter are the ideal times to apply phosphorus and potassium fertilizers. Elements like phosphorus and potassium are relatively immobile in the soil and break down very slowly. By applying them now, you're setting up a slow-release nutrient bank that will be readily available for your plants just when they start their active growth cycle in the spring. Nitrogen fertilizers, on the other hand, should not be applied before winter. They are highly mobile and will simply leach out or wash away with the spring melt. Instead, simply scatter the superphosphate and potassium sulfate across your beds according to the package directions and lightly incorporate them using a hoe or broad fork. Think of it as putting money into a high-yield savings account. By spring, your investment in fertility will pay handsome dividends. Now let's turn our attention to the secret weapon of natural farming, cover crops. These are plants we grow, not for harvest, but solely for improving the quality of the soil. They are rightly called green manure, and that's exactly what they are. When sown in the fall, before the harsh winter sets in, they manage to develop deep root systems and a modest amount of green foliage. Their roots effectively aerate and loosen the soil to a great depth, pulling essential nutrients up from the lower layers. The remaining green matter acts as a protective blanket throughout the winter, shielding the ground from deep freezing and erosion. In the spring, you won't even need to clear them out. They simply decompose, becoming part of your mulch layer and a rich source of organic material. This is truly a situation where your plants keep working for you, even during the cold months. So, which cover crop should we actually choose for December planting? Obviously, not every variety will cut it. We need hardy winter crops that can truly handle the deep freeze. Your perfect candidates are winter rye and winter oats. Rye boasts an incredibly powerful root system, capable of breaking up even the densest, most compacted clay soil. Plus, it releases compounds that naturally suppress many weeds, especially persistent ones like quackgrass. Oats are a little less aggressive, but they still do a fantastic job of soil conditioning and enriching the earth with organic matter. You can even use a mix of the two. The key is to sow thickly. We want a dense, lush, green carpet. Just imagine, your garden bed goes into winter, not bare and exposed, but tucked in under a living green blanket. The technique for pre-winter sowing of cover crops is incredibly simple. You don't even need to incorporate the seeds deeply. After you've lightly loosened the soil and applied any necessary fertilizer, simply broadcast the rye or oat seeds evenly across the surface of the garden bed. Then use a rake to lightly go over the area, mixing the seeds into the topsoil. The ideal sowing depth should be very shallow, no more than 2 or 3 centimeters at the very most. If the earth is extremely dry, you can give it a light watering, but usually the natural moisture we get in late fall and early winter is perfectly sufficient. That's all there is to it. Your work is finished. From this point on, nature takes over and does the rest for you. This is arguably the highest return investment of time and effort you can make in your garden. We've arrived at the core secret of no-dig gardening: mulching. If cover crops are the living blanket, mulch is the equally vital non-living one. Mulch is simply any organic material we use to cover the soil surface. It serves as protection, nutrition, and medicine, all in one package. Under a layer of mulch, the soil stays moist. It won't overheat in summer or freeze solid in winter. This creates the perfect environment for earthworms and beneficial microorganisms. They handle the heavy lifting for you, aerating and enriching the soil. Mulch drastically suppresses weed growth, so come spring, you can forget about constant weeding. Essentially, by mulching your beds, you are switching your soil fertility into autopilot mode. What can we use to mulch our garden beds in December? The options are vast, and chances are you already have everything you need right there on your property. Fallen leaves from the garden make excellent material, especially those collected from under fruit trees. Mown and dried grass clippings, hay and straw are the classics of mulching. Sawdust or wood shavings will work too, but it's crucial to remember that as fresh sawdust decomposes, it draws nitrogen out of the soil. Therefore, it's best to use materials that are well aged or to pre-treat them with a urea solution. Even shredded branches run through a wood chipper can become fantastic, long-lasting mulch. Just use whatever you have handy. Every type of mulch has its own specific considerations. For instance, be aware that materials like hay and straw often contain weed seeds, so you need to factor that into your planning. Leaf litter, especially oak leaves, can slightly acidify the soil, which is something important to keep in mind. Sawdust, as we've noted before, requires supplemental nitrogen. Pine needles make excellent mulch for acid-loving plants, such as hydrangeas and blueberries. The absolute best solution, however, is to combine different types of mulch by creating a layered mulch lasagna out of grass clippings, leaves and compost. You provide your soil with the most diverse and balanced nutrition possible. Always experiment and observe which material works best for your specific soil and garden. One of the key questions is, how thick should that mulch layer actually be? The general rule of thumb here is that more is better than less, but we must certainly avoid going to extremes. For winter mulching, the optimal depth is generally between 5 and 10 centimeters. Anything thinner than that won't effectively suppress weeds and certainly won't protect your soil from deep freezing. However, if it's too thick, over 15 centimeters, it risks smothering the soil or causing it to rot out in the spring, especially when dealing with heavy clay ground. Think of it like applying a protective cream to the soil. The layer needs to be substantial, but not so thick that it suffocates or blocks the pores. Spread the mulch evenly across the area, making sure to leave a small gap, a mulch-free zone, around the crown of any perennial plants that are overwintering in your garden. There is another highly effective, albeit slightly unconventional method for preparing garden beds, especially useful if you're tackling virgin soil or battling really aggressive weeds. This involves covering the entire area with cardboard. Yes, we're talking about plain corrugated cardboard, the kind without tape or glossy coloured inks. This technique is often dubbed lasagna gardening or lasagna beds. You simply lay the cardboard directly onto the ground, and you can even double or triple up the layers. Then, you top it with a thick layer of organic material, compost, leaves, grass clippings, anything biodegradable you have handy. The cardboard serves a dual purpose. It blocks sunlight, effectively smothering the existing weeds, and it becomes a feast for earthworms which absolutely love it. So, how exactly does cardboard fight weeds? It's actually quite simple. By blocking out the sunlight, even the toughest perennial weeds, like quackgrass or ground elder, can't photosynthesize and gradually starve. Their root systems become exhausted, break down, and enrich the soil, turning into natural fertilizer. Throughout the winter and spring, the cardboard will soften, decompose, and be broken down by beneficial soil microbes. By planting time, you'll have a completely weed-free, loose, and highly fertile garden bed. In the spring, all you need to do is poke holes through that top layer of decomposing matter and plant your seedlings. No need for weeding. The weeds effectively defeated themselves, all thanks to your clever management. December is an excellent time to lay the groundwork for next season's layered garden beds. The basic principle is simple. We create a multi-layered structure, a sort of organic lasagna, using materials that break down slowly. Start by laying thick branches and logs, even old tree trunks, at the very bottom of the bed, perhaps even in a shallow trench. The next layer is composed of smaller branches, crop residue, and garden debris. This is followed by a layer of leaves, grass clippings, and compost. Finally, top the entire structure off with a generous layer of fertile soil. Throughout the winter and early spring, these bottom layers will slowly break down, naturally generating warmth. In the spring, this type of layered bed warms up much faster than a traditional garden patch, allowing you to start planting 2 to 3 weeks earlier. We often overlook how important snow actually is. Snow is the soil's best natural winter blanket. It prevents deep freezing, and in the spring, it feeds the ground with vital meltwater. Our main goal in December should be encouraging snow accumulation on our garden beds. If your plot is exposed to strong winds, you can place small barriers, lay down evergreen boughs, or stick up old sunflower stalks between the rows. Any obstacle will help capture the snow, forming generous drifts. The deeper the snow cover, the shallower the soil freezing, which means the ground thaws faster in the spring and is ready for planting sooner. It's a completely free and incredibly effective gardening strategy. The final, crucial step in getting your garden beds ready might be applying a preventative treatment. Once you've cleaned up any diseased plant remnants and incorporated your organic matter, you should drench the soil with a solution of effective microorganisms, often known as EM preparations. These products contain a powerful consortium of beneficial bacteria and fungi. They work by suppressing the growth of pathogenic microbes while significantly speeding up the decomposition of organic material. By drenching your beds with this mixture, you are essentially inoculating them with these good guys who will work tirelessly throughout the winter to restore and improve the soil's health. Think of it as giving your garden a powerful probiotic dose, significantly boosting its overall immunity. Finally, while the beds are tucked in and resting up for the new season, you have time for the most crucial step, planning. Grab a sheet of paper and map out your garden. Note exactly where everything was planted last year. Then, plan your upcoming season with crop rotation in mind. Remember, you absolutely should not plant the same crop in the same spot year after year. Alternate root vegetables with leafy greens, and deep-rooted crops with shallow-rooted ones. Smart planning is half the battle won. It's key to avoiding plant diseases and preventing soil depletion. That way, when spring finally arrives and it's time to plant, you will already have a clear, well-thought-out strategy ready to go. And just like that, step by step, we've gotten our garden ready for the new season. And notice this, the shovel never even made it out of the shed. Instead of exhausting spring tilling or digging, we completed a few simple yet crucial tasks back in December. We cleared potential disease sources, gently loosened the soil, fed it, tucked it under a living and non-living mulch layer, and even planned out our future plantings. Here's the major takeaway from this whole process. By working less, we are actually doing so much more for the earth. We aren't disturbing the soil, we are supporting its natural healthy processes. This spring, you'll walk out to your garden bed, pull back the mulch, and discover living, loose, moist soil teeming with earthworms, perfectly ready to accept your seeds. And that will be the greatest reward for your foresight and winter wisdom. Thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. If you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now, I have a question for you. What are your go-to winter secrets or tricks for getting the garden ready? Share your experience in the comments below. Let's learn from each other.